All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to everybody around the world. So, for this video here, I just wanted to stress on the following. And I'm not just making another pointless video, but I never pre-plan what I'm going to say, right? It's always off the top of my head. But for today, I wanted to focus on two things. One is the possibility of when it could happen in 2023. Go over a few little things. We don't have to focus on that too hard because it may not happen on that date, but it is very interesting when you hear the reasoning for it. So I'm here to talk about that. I'm also here to briefly mention how I really think that even myself and many others, we could be excluded from the rapture and being accepted up into heaven. If we can't live here on earth like it is up in heaven, then I don't think we're going to be allowed into it. I'm not talking about we have to be like Jesus angels and all of that. I'm not getting into petty arguments, but if if you're addicted to, or you have a habit of certain sins, or whatever it could be getting angry, it could be lust or adultery, it could be drugs or alcoholism, or number of different things, right? But you know let's hope you're not doing theft and crime and abuse and all of that as well, right? But whatever sins it is, you have to realize that if you want to get into heaven, you can't be doing these things. There's plenty of verses I'm not going to read today where Jesus himself says that sinners don't enter the heavens. Those committing adultery, murder, and this and that are left out. They're not let in. And we know all the verses like the parables where the Christians, where he's talking about the Christians, and the Christians, like he says, they're the women symbolizing, like the assemblies or the churches as the women. It's not talking about all the world. And he chastises the Christians, saying that many of them will be turned away. So, and we have all the warnings in Revelation, the seven edicts of the churches, where six out of the seven are threatened, saying if you don't reform, you'll be basically rebuked and turned away. So we have all these warnings, and it is really clear that if you're doing what it comes down to is my point, and my point is right, that if you're living on earth here doing all these bad types of things, no matter what it is, even if you're good in all the other avenues, but you get angry all the time, you get angry at people and things like that, for example, right? Or if you have a problem with lying, even if there's only like one thing that you do, and that's but if it's a problem, you know what I mean? Like everybody might do something now and then. I'm not the judge. I'm not here to say that's okay. But that's different than if you have a problem with something. Like some people have problem with anger. Some people have problem with, I don't know, all sorts of different things. You know what I mean? Anger is one that most people probably have, right? And I'm not saying that you're evil if you get angry, but if you have an anger problem, or if you have a theft problem, or a lust problem, or a drug or alcohol problem, and all these different things, right? And tons of others, that is going to keep you from getting into heaven, because God is not going to be sitting here making rules to break rules to let people into heaven who don't deserve to be there and who can't function there. That's the most important thing. It's not about God being picky and just being stuck up. It's about real life. I mean, if you have a better place, you're not going to contaminate that better place with tons of people who do bad things, right? What is it going to be? Like you get taken up. What if God does cut everybody slack and he lets people who do some sins up into heaven, and they get up into heaven and they start doing the sins again? Are you saying that you would agree to be kicked out again? You know what I mean? No, like heaven is a better place. It's not like earth where all this stuff exists. When we're up in heaven, we can't be doing stuff like that. People and beings that do stuff like that get kicked out of heaven. We know that with Satan and his messengers in Revelation 12. You can't do that stuff up in heaven. Even Adam and Eve are kicked out of Eden, which I believe symbolizes that prior estate. But nonetheless, they were kicked out of Eden for disobedience, right? So if we're living on earth not like it is and should be in heaven, then we're going to have a hard time getting accepted in. That's my point. You have to live on earth as it is in heaven. This isn't some stuck up premise. It's logical and it makes sense. It's functional because when you get up into heaven, you can't be doing these things. And if you do, you're probably going to get kicked out. And it makes more sense that people who have problems and they can't stop doing certain things, they wouldn't be allowed into heaven because they can't function there. You follow me? So it makes perfect sense to me. And, you know, with all the stuff I've been teaching about the end coming soon and all of that, like I have with my book and my channels for so many years, I've always said since day one, I've always said it millions of times that I may not be taken up, right? God is the judge. I'm not the judge. I don't get to decide if I go up. Everybody wants themselves to go up. But even though, despite the fact that I've been warning about the end and everything, that doesn't mean I get a free ticket to heaven. So there's always a, not literal whatsoever. I basically imagine it, but I imagine as like a counter argument to myself, right? At times, so to speak. Like, so I'll picture, someone objectively saying to me, "Oh, well, how can you be doing these bad things and expect to get into heaven?" Like, so what my teachings of the end days have no relevance to it at all. I'm still a regular person like everybody else, right? So how do I expect, just because I believe and know it's happening soon, and maybe it does happen soon, or maybe I was right, I'm still might not be ready. That's the point. So I do that. Everybody does that, right? So I thought of a counter argument to myself, so to speak, right, to help kick me into gear and motivate me, because I can't just sit here and be lazy, and nobody can sit here and be lazy and think that, oh, how I am is good enough. I'll just gamble it and wait for the judgment to come. Now, you really need to get in order now. You need to, just like cartoons had back in the day, a little angel on one shoulder, a devil on the other, right? That's not literal, but it comes down to something like that in essence, right? A good decision, a bad decision. And that's what you need to be doing, because everybody, me and everybody, we build on bad decisions or bad things and this and that there. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a little. Everybody's different and teach their own. But all that has to stop, and you really have to start listening to that little angel on your shoulder, you know what I mean, so to speak, and start making the right decisions. You have to start living on earth as it is in heaven. If you could do that and live on earth, even if it's, say, you start off with 1 week, right? If you stay pure for 1 week, you've proven that you can do that. You've at least proven that you can be pure. You got other people out there who will be like, "Oh yeah, I think I can do it," and they'll say it, but they've never put themselves to the test, and they've never proven that they can do it, even if it's just 1 week. Because I mean, what if the end days arrive a week from now, and that's all you get is 1 week, right? Is 1 week enough? Well, at least you've proven that you can do it. That's my point. But if you never make that first step and try to be pure and live on earth like it is in heaven, then you're in serious trouble. Now, I'm not here to go on till the cows come home about little petty arguments about, oh, well, nobody can be perfect. I'm not even getting into that. Like, live on earth as it is in heaven. You know what I mean? I never say anything about being perfect. I'm not getting into the gray area topics. At the end of the day, there's two clear differences: there's heaven and there's earth or hell, whatever, not heaven. Okay, if you want to go to heaven, you have to live like you are living in heaven. Okay, and if you don't do that, then you don't get to go there. It's very simple, right? If you want to live full of sin and do bad things and this and that there, like it is on earth, then you're just not going to go to heaven. It's very, very simple. But anyways, I do urge everybody, because the time, it's either going to happen or it's not, right? There's still many months left of 2023. As my book says, by all fairness, it should be at the end of 2023 or at some point in 2024. Um, Hence the title of the book. So we do still have, hypothetically, like just under a year and a half, right? So don't get lax. Don't get too lazy. It'll be like, the days ago, everybody will be lax and lazy. We've been warned about that. I've been saying that. It's a different story if 2023 and 24 pass and nothing happens. But my book does have a chapter I talk about like 25, 26, and 27. There's a few small possibilities for that, but let's not waste time going there. It's either going to happen or it's not. Even if it doesn't happen in the next few years, it may still happen in our lifetime. Most of us here might be alive for another 50 years or whatever. I don't know, 30 to 50 years to each your own. And it could just happen in our lifetime. That still makes it extremely important. That's still the one you in this life that you have to get right and get ready and reform now. That's my point. So my point is that if I am right in all of this, and the end is coming soon, then we really do have to live on earth like it is in heaven. And whether there should be, according to the Bible, angels up above recording all our deeds, monitoring everything. And if they are, then they know all these things, right? They know all the things that we've been thinking and doing. God probably does as well, but he probably hires these beings to go do this type of job to ease up what God has to do. I don't know how it works, but you got God and all these beings monitoring us. It's not like you're going to get away with anything. So everybody needs to smarten up and really take it seriously, because I think one of the, not to say one thing is more tragic than the other, but just euphemistically speaking or whatever for illustrative purposes, the greatest tragedy would be if Christians, you have 2 billion, 2.5 billion Christians on the planet. And what if the end days arrive and then, like, most of them are turned away? Like, I mean, most of them. Like, this would be a very tragic scenario. They're the ones who should have gotten into heaven. You know what I mean? They're the ones who had the gospel to get into heaven. But I'm just saying, hypothetically, what if that is the case? Like, I go through in my older book that's on Amazon, where I go into the theology. This is about correcting the apostasy of modern Christianity. Most old denominations are theologically backwards wrong. And, most people aren't prepared for when the end is coming. So when you combine the two, it's a very dire prospect. And if God is to judge people on theological principles and be strict on it, like he was with Judaism in the Old Testament, then it could be really bad. But I'm not the judge. I'm not going to say how it's going to happen. I like to think that as long as you're a good person, he's going to put theological and dogmatic matters secondary to that. You know what I mean? He might judge hypocrisy and punish hypocrisy, because a lot of Christians are guilty of hypocrisy. It's in what they believe, and then, how it contradicts, what the Bible actually says. Um, but I think the most important thing is that if you're a good person, right, you have to be good all the way around. You have to be good all the time. And if you're good, that's like you're living on earth as it is in heaven. God and the beings, the angels, whatever, who are observing us and judging us now and at the actual judgment, however it's going to happen, they would see that you're being a good person. You know what I mean? And I think that's what everybody needs to be doing now. We need to take it seriously because the end could be coming. Let's not fuss on theological matters too much. But like I said, I'm not the judge. Maybe God does stress about that. But I think being good is important. There's no sense being correct on theological matters and still sinning. You know what I mean? So I wrote this systematic theology. If God would say, "Oh, you are correct in this. You're 99 or 100% correct. Congratulations on your hard work," you then turn around and say, "But you're still a terrible sinner in blah 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 ways." You see my point? So having theology correct, whether it's correct or not, is not as important as being a good person. And you have to be good in all ways, always. And if the end is coming soon, like the book says, and like I'm about to get into now, then we may not have much time. And I don't know if you can prove it to God in 7 days or 1 month. I don't know if that's enough time being good to prove it, but at least it will have proved that you could be good for that length, for any length of time. You know what I mean? But anyway, so I'm just urging everybody to prepare. Take it seriously. Live on earth as it is in heaven. Right? That's my own little motto that I'm going by now, because I want to take this seriously. I do want the end to come for the betterment of everybody, so everybody can be reunited with their loved ones, who have passed away and all of that. I really do want all of this to happen and just to be in a better place, a better world, right? And that's what I'm really hoping for, right? But if I want it, then I have to earn it. So what I want to talk about here today in conjunction with this video is, I just don't want to make a second video, and it's kind of related. So I've made videos about this very thing before in prior years. Okay, over the last 7 years, I've talked about it. So this isn't new, but I always deleted the videos afterwards because I just thought there's a lot of reasons why, I just don't want to get into it. But I'll share it again here today. There's certain issues and problems with the book of Ezekiel, and it gets into all these massive hairball of arguments, and there's many other reasons I just wanted to leave it at, right? Brings up a lot of confusion and contention in people. So even myself, you know what I mean, or it used to. So that's what I always delete it. But I think it's worth mentioning because coincidences don't always happen. I mean, coincidences usually happen for a reason, I would like to say. Maybe some are pure coincidence, but this is probably not a coincidence. So in Ezekiel 46 is talking, it is a prophecy. So in Ezekiel's day, they didn't have the second temple yet. I think Ezekiel, I'm not getting into an argument here, but I think Ezekiel was talking about rebuilding the second temple. Right? So leaving apart the argument, who cares which temple it is, right? It is a prophecy about the future for Ezekiel. And he's prophetically talking about the temple, right? And it says, thus said the Lord God, this is chapter 46. The gate of the inner court that is looking eastward is shut 6 days of work, and on the day of rest it is open, and in the day of the new moon it is open. And come in as the prince the way of the porch of the gate at the outside, and he has stood by the post of the gate, and the priest has made his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he has bowed himself by the opening of the gate, and has gone forth, and the gate is not shut till the evening. So I've long thought that that verse has got end days implications, right? Whether it's talking about, I mean, there isn't going to be a third temple. Like, if you're a Christian, there is no third temple. That's what I mean. Like, I'm not getting into these terrible arguments here, right? Um, but there isn't a third temple. Jesus identified his body as the third temple, right? He said, "This temple you will break apart, and in 3 days I will rebuild it." That was his body at the resurrection. End of story, right? And it says many other verses, there is no temple in the heavens where God is. There is no temple and all of that. And there is no sun because God is the light. So and Jesus said our body is the temple. So, but I'm not getting into arguments, right? It's prophetic. It's talking about a temple. I think it's talking about the second temple being constructed. Let's not get into arguments. Let's focus on the important things that are being said here. My point is, no matter what it's talking about, it's still laying down a framework, okay, of logical statements and beliefs. So who cares if it's about second temple, third temple, about whatever, about an NFL football stadium? Who cares what it's about? Ignore that. Look at the other things still exist if you're ignoring what you're imagining it's about. So ignore what you think it is. Read what it says. It's laying down a framework, right? So it says the gate of the inner court. Now the inner court could only be accessed by the holy people. It couldn't be accessed by the average person. Okay, only the priests and holy people of certain sorts could go in there. Okay, such as the Messiah. Okay, it also mentions the prince will come in. The Messiah is called the prince in many places in the New Testament. I have many videos about this before. He's called prince, I think, in like 4, 5, or 6 different places. So he's the prince coming in. So what it's saying is that the inner court that is looking eastward is shut the 6 days of work. Now, I took this as being end days, having end days implications because mortal man will be here 6,000 years according to belief, and that's the 6 days of work. Then you have 1 day of rest. So I took this as a hint from God that, hey, even though this might be talking about a specific temple, who cares what it's talking about? It's still laying down these facts and statements in its framework, right? So after 6 days of work, so yeah, yes, the weekly work week is based on this too, but that's the thing. It's got multiple parallels. The way it was written, wisely written, so that it could have multiple parallels, right? So in that earthly sense, it's 6 day work week out of a 7 day work, 6 days of work in a 7 day work week. On the higher sense, you have 6 days of work. That's 6,000 years of mortal man, right? As I detail in my book and in my videos, right? 2023 is that final year. So this is very interesting. So if there's no way that I'm wrong, like, because all the math is in the book. Like, 2023 is 6,000 years since the birth of Seth, who was the first mortal, and who the human lineage is counted from. There's no doubt of that, right? Whether this verse is talking about the end days or not is the question, right? But the 6,000 years definitely have ended in 2023. So if all this is correct, what it would be saying is that the gate of the inner court that is looking eastward is shut to 6 days of work, and on the day of rest it is open. So what's it open for, right? So if it's shut, this thing is shut for 6,000 years symbolically, right? And it really has been for the last few thousand or whatever, right? But it's been shut 6,000 years, but it's opened. What is it being open for? But it says it's open on the day of rest, and it's open on the day of the new moon. It's open for the prince. The prince comes in through the way of the porch of the gate at the outside, and he's still, they say their prayers, and all the people bow. So it's about the arrival of the Messiah. So I think I'm fair in my reasoning. It's got 6 days of work, right? That's pretty significant. It talks about the arrival of the prince. Prince is a verified term you can apply to Messiah. Okay, people are bowing down, all this important stuff is happening. And then we have something else that's interesting that's mentioned in the day of the new moon and in the day of rest that is open. So these dates don't always line up together, right? So you have a new moon each month and it fluctuates according to its pattern, right? And the Sabbath is the seventh day of the week, but they don't always fall on the same day. Okay? For example, in 2023, I have the moon phases for Jerusalem, Israel. Okay? And I checked them all on the Hebrew calendar that I got here as well. I've done this many times over the years. I've had videos about this before, right? But in 2023, there's only one, maybe two, I think, that both occasions fall on one day. So I thought to myself, yeah, I don't think it's that far reaching. I think it's perfectly fair and reasonable. I've had many people over the years agree that this could be quite significant. It could be a cryptic hint from God, pretty bold, that after 6,000 years the Messiah arrives. Okay, he'll be coming from the east. That'll be another fact that's revealed, and that the day he arrives on is the day of rest and the day of the new moon. Right, so it tells us the measure of time, 6,000 years. We know that ends 2023. That's my reasonable basis for looking at 2023. I've looked at all the other years as well, don't get me wrong, but that's fair reason to look at 2023. And when the new moon and the day of rest occur together, there is one event in January, like 21st, I think it was, right? Obviously, nothing happened then, right? There's a few other that are close, but this one here, and I think there's one other one in October, right? Like I said, there's like one or two. But this one here, you can argue is a third. I think this one here is a strong contender. If we go and look at the Hebrew calendar, right, for September, in September 15th, which is Friday, this is Gregorian, right? Because you have to remember in Hebrew calendar, they take the day starts at nighttime. It's not like on Gregorian sense, each day it's a little bit different. In the Hebrew, when the sun goes down, it's the next day, right? So on Friday the 15th is the eve of Rosh Hashanah, okay? Then on Saturday the 16th, it is Rosh Hashanah, okay? But it truly starts on sundown on Friday. You follow me? So that there actually fits with the new moon and whatchamacallit. So the 15th of September is the new moon. If you look on the Hebrew calendar, that's the Friday. Now, yes, the Friday is not the Saturday, which is the Sabbath. However, the Sabbath starts sundown on Friday. That's the reality, right? That is the reality. And of all days of the year, like 21st of January isn't anything important, 14th of October isn't anything as important. When you look here at September 15th, this is the eve of Rosh Hashanah for the new year. That makes it pretty significant. And also, in Judaism and in Christianity, there's long been talk that Rosh Hashanah is tied to this cryptic, this cryptic belief that you will not know the day or the hour. I don't know if the name does literally translate to that or if it's like a colloquialism that people use, but it is present in Judaism and Christianity that the day is about we don't know the day or hour because of how, if I'm not mistaken, it's because of how the calendars got, not lost or they got misconstrued and they might be a day off or something like that. So they're not 100% sure. But in either case, right? It's highly significant that on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, okay, you get that there. I have so many windows open here, I'm just getting confused. So it could very well be that, right? So that would put it about a month away. So if it does happen in 2023 or 2024, we have up to a year and a half to get ourselves right with God and be ready to go. But it could very well happen next month. It would be within 2023 with the year flux principle, like I detail in my book. You know, that's the reason why it doesn't necessarily happen at the end of 2023 because the starting events, we don't know if the starting events happen in January, June, or December, right? That's what I mean by year flux. So it could be 2023 or 2024. 2023 is the end of the 6,000 years, but because we don't know when Seth was born in a January, June, or December, we don't know if it's the start of the year or at the end. So you're talking about the measure of time. That's what I mean. So we just have to be ready, waiting, and watching. But this day is a very good contender. Okay, it has the mystique of you won't know the day or hour, which is regarding the coming of Messiah in Christianity. Okay, and ironically, that's even present in Judaism. You won't know the day or the hour. It's the new year. So, of all the days of the year, it's one of the most significant holy days. Okay, a new year symbolizes like birth because so all the holy days and all that Passover and all that, they're important, don't get me wrong. This one here is about the birth of a new year. That makes it more symbolically relevant as well. And it's not pushing it. This sundown on the Friday will make it the Sabbath. Okay, so it's the new moon and the Sabbath on that time. Okay, so the Eastern Gate, I found out it's called the Golden Gate. Right, so if you read a little Wikipedia here, the Golden Gate or Gate of Mercy is the only eastern gate of the Temple Mount and one of the only two gates of the old city of Jerusalem that used to offer access into the city from the east side. The gate has been sealed since 1541, the most recent of several sealings. Its interior can be accessed from the Temple Mount. And it says in Jewish tradition, the Messiah will enter Jerusalem through this gate. So I guess I'm not far reaching in what I'm getting from Ezekiel 46, coming from the Mount of Olives. So, and Christians and Muslims generally believe that this was the gate through which Jesus entered Jerusalem, presumably in his own day. So, uh, in the Mishnah, Midot 1:3, the eastern gate of the second temple compound is called the Shushan Gate. If the Golden Gate does preserve the location of the Shushan Gate, which is only a presumption with no archaeological proof, this would make it the oldest of the current gates in Jerusalem's old city walls. Jewish and Christian tradition attributes its construction to King Solomon, but there's no hardcore proof of that. Right, so it makes it pretty interesting, right? The Eastern Gate, because I didn't even know if the Eastern Gate was still standing, right? The Eastern Gate is still standing. It may not be the original, but whatever. The Eastern Gate is still standing. It's actually been sealed for hundreds of years, right? And it says here, and it's the gate that Jesus went through when he was here on earth, right? So it says here that after the 6 days of work, 6,000 years, on the day of rest it is open, and the day of the new moon it is opened. So that could be September 15th. And come in as the prince, the way of the ports of the gate at the outside. And he stood by the post of the gate. I looked up pictures of this place. You could still see the gate, like on from the inside. Like you could see it from the outside. When you look at like the little courtyard type area on the inside, they have a little man-sized iron gate that someone would enter into the temple if it were still standing. And I was just picturing, like, oh, is he actually going to come down there and enter through there for some symbolic purpose, right? But it's very, very interesting. So that's all from Ezekiel 46. And what else do I need to go through here? Um, I don't need to read that. So yeah, if it's not September 15th, I mean, it doesn't even have to happen according to Ezekiel 46, like I'm saying. This is just interesting, right? But the fact that it says 6 days of work, and I know it's tied over to the Sabbath and their system and their law. Don't get me wrong, I'm not ignorant, right? But I think like if you're searching for these keywords like I have been, this shows up as an anomaly. So it's like a one-off, which makes it special and important. So the fact that it mentions all these key things here in this kind of rare one-off verse strikes me as God's trying to tell us something, right? He's got all the key terminologies for the return of the Messiah, right? And the Eastern Gate is still standing today, even, right? So all this makes it very interesting. But if it's not in September, what else we got? What was it, 14th of October? Is 14th of October the other one? Where's October? Yeah, 14th of October is straight up on the Saturday, the 14th, the Sabbath, right? It's not disqualifying September 15th. I'm just saying this one is without question definitely on the Sabbath. It is on a Jewish holiday, but I don't know how significant this one is. Shabbat Mevarkim Kodesh Keshvan. I looked it up once before, but it's not as significant as certain other ones you can get, right? And what other one do we have as a contender for 2023? 13th of November and 13th of December. And I don't think, yeah, that's not going to work. So if I can, let me see if I can go to 2024 real quick. Um, let's see. I'm going to have to go back to the search engine real quick. So if it's not 2023, what about 2024? So moon, was it? I can't remember what I searched for. Moon calendar, Jerusalem, Israel, 2024. Um, that's 2023. No, that's not the same thing. Moon phases for 2024 Jerusalem. This is slightly different, but I could try to break it down. So it's got new moon 2024 Jerusalem, January 11th. So let's go. We're in 2023 here. Let's go to 2024. So January 2024. Let's compare these real quick. Might as well get this done while I'm here. We got January 11th, February 10th. So we got a no for January. February 10th is on a Sabbath, and it's Rosh Hodesh Adar, but it's the second. There's one. The day before that is the same holiday name written on it, so I don't know what that is offhand. March 10th. Nope. Then we got April 8th. Nope. Then May 8th. Nope. Then June 14th. No. Then July 14th. Both are 14th? Yep. July 14th. Nope. August 12th. Nope. September 11th. Nope. October 10th. Nope. November 9 and December 8. November 9, yes, but it on no special day though, but it is on the Sabbath. And then December 8th, was it? Yeah, December 8th. And that's a no. So we did have two hits for 2024, but they're not on significant days. So I mean, really, let's close all that up and do my synopsis here. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's got to be in 2023 or 2024. Ezekiel 46 here may or may not be prophetic in the ways that I'm talking about, but if it is, it could signify that it's September 15th. I mean, let me put it this way: it could signify that it's one of those aforementioned dates in these 2 years. But of those aforementioned dates that I've gone through for 2023 and 24, the most significant and striking one is Rosh Hashanah. So on the eve, Erev Rosh Hashanah, September 15th, on the Friday night, that would be a fulfillment of what I'm saying with Ezekiel 46. So that is a contender. I think it's the best contender. So we all better get ready like it could happen. Because, I mean, hey, what if I am right in all these things? It's easy. Well, it's just as easy to work hard as it is to be lazy about something. It's very easy to just lay back, relax, and think, I don't think it's going to happen. It's very easy, but what if it does? You know what I mean? I haven't offered up paltry evidence for 2023 and 24. I've offered up really good evidence. Like when I read my own book, once it was complete, I got tingles up my spine. Like it was crazy. It's like a revelation. It's mind blowing and life changing. Like it's such hardcore evidence, and there's no way that it's coincidence. So, I mean, if I am right, maybe I'm just too humble about it and nobody else is bothered to pay attention to my findings. But maybe I am right and maybe it's going to happen. And maybe it doesn't happen September. Maybe it happens 2024 sometime. But if it does, we got to be ready. That time's going to go very, very fast, right? So, anyways, that's all for today. 33 minutes, 33 seconds. I'll read the comments afterwards. Take care, folks.